Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Geek News, Reviews, and Opinions for February 28th, 2015. We are at the end of February, boys and girls, which means, well, this would be a sixth of our year is gone. So, sorry, guys. But, hey, March! Of course, I am your host, Adam Mickelson, and wow, it's been an interesting week, both back and forth. Unfortunately, there isn't a whole lot of tech news, I'm afraid, but we do have a lot of interesting topics to talk about tonight. But before we go ahead and go into that, we've had an interesting panel join us this evening. First of all, I'd like to introduce everybody to the first ever magical boy, because he's earned his contract, and he's looking up to his idols of Madoka and Sakura. That would be the Shadow Blazer himself. Or, I'm sorry, are you Sakura tonight? Is that what's going on?
No, I'm not Sakura tonight, nor am I Madoka, but they are engaged in some BFF-ness. Homer might get a little jealous if they're not careful.
It's anime. BFF-ness is just as much fan service as anything else. Sorry.
Especially considering we got into a whole discussion about Yuri on our last on-hack recording session. Too bad that's all lost, but we'll make it up in the post-commentary.
Oh,
Don't you worry.
We'll have to. So, how are we doing tonight, Alex?
I'm doing quite well, but it's not so much February and it's not so much March, so I think it's quite smarch because of the snow.
Okay.
Well, it's March weather.
Yes, it's been snowing all day, and it's been kind of frustrating, so hopefully, well, actually, I was going to say, hopefully it clears up, but given the weather report I'm getting from my app, it's going to be going into the week, so unfortunate for people. But we are also being joined by one of our other wonderful panelists, Angry Cow. And we've been told that Angry Cow has an interesting segment for the show, something along the lines of what Peter Griffin brought to the news program, what grinds my gears. So we're just going to go ahead and let you do your segment, Angry Cow. What's up?
Well, there's a lot to be angry about. I mean, what's the deal with Chick-fil-A, assuming that we all want people to eat more chicken? I mean, come on, we share the barnyard, people. I mean, you're just going to throw another barn animal under the bus to save your own skin? Despicable.
Are you actually saying you want us to eat you?
No, I'm just saying you should all be vegetarians.
Well,
or fish.
I don't know.
I don't give. Or you could eat fish. I don't give a damn about fish. Live in the water, splashing up, taunting us. Yeah, especially them dolphins. So full of themselves. They get all giddy because people think that they're a bunch of jokers. But guess what? They'll kill you as soon as you turn around. I've seen it.
Well, I mean, Futurama pretty much confirmed that the dolphins would rise from the sea and try to take us over. So.
Technically Simpsons, but I'm sure that they did an episode that too because they're not that creative.
Because
Simpsons
did it. Stephen Romney of Romney's Reviews. How are we doing this fine night?
Well, pretty good. Mostly tired because I had to help my sister move into her new apartment today.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah, it was on the 3rd floor. Lots of heavy stuff.
Ouch. Guess no elevator?
No elevator.
Of course.
But it looks nice. She gave us pizza. And, yeah, that's why I'm going with the ear goggles this week instead of earbuds.
Might be the best thing to do, but that was nice of you to do that for your sister.
Yeah.
I was hoping she brings you over more often, but, you know.
Yeah, I mean, she pretty much lives still fairly close, and for some reason she has a PS4. I don't know how she got one, so who knows?
I don't know. I'm still trying to figure out how I got a PS4.
Yeah, I'm sorry. They're just spontaneously appearing in people's houses.
Exactly. You need to. Here's what needs to happen. You need to earn enough Sony. It's not achievements. It's trophy points, and then they all of a sudden, bing, they're just right there.
Either that, or you just open any telephone because they secretly monitor all telephones and just whisper the words "briny depths."
That could be it too.
Thumbs up to anybody who gets that joke.
So I would like to also think that, you know, with some of the comments that I've received over the year, over the time that I've done this, since everybody says I'm such a Sony fanboy, that somebody actually let Sony know, and then Sony just went, "Oh, he's a fanboy, so we're gonna give you a PS4." Except I have spoken ill of Sony, but we don't need to tell him about that. We don't need to tell him about that.
Yeah.
So let's go ahead and get into the stories. Unfortunately, Aldo Gomez of Board Offline will not be able to join us. He has not made his proper offering to the internet gods. He got too busy in the week, and unfortunately his internet is giving him tons of crap. So he will get back to us when he can. If he can make it work tonight, he will join us. But in the meantime, thoughts and prayers to him, and hopefully we will see him next week or when he gets back. But don't worry, it's not like the end. We're going to see plenty of I was going to say Stephen Romney. We're going to see plenty of him too, but we're also going to see plenty of Aldo Gomez pretty soon.
And the raccoons.
And the raccoons. We're going to call upon the inner power of the raccoons to bring forth his internet. So they're going to buffer it up. We're going to get Rocket down here to personally augment it. Something like that.
Yeah, he just needs to get some prosthetic arms and legs.
Yeah. Just because. It's not that he needs them or anything like that.
He really needs them, though. They're really, really important.
I didn't really even think you'd do it, man. That was awesome. I didn't need those things. All right, so let's go ahead and get into the stories of this week. And oh boy, brace yourselves, boys and girls. We've got quite a bit to talk about tonight. I will actually even warn people in advance. Our entertainment segment will be the biggest part here because, whoo boy, we had some things happen. So our first story of this tech segment is actually something that literally happened, I think, over this weekend. So we're going to go ahead and get into this because apparently Valve has reserved some time at GDC 2015 for a public press conference. And I'd just like to be the first one to make the joke. Half-Life 3 confirmed?
Possibly. It's 333.
It is 333.
At 3:30 p.m.
It is indeed. And it's March 3rd. Unfortunately, you can't put in the 2015. But yes, so Half-Life 3 is right now the speculation, but let's just be honest with ourselves. Gabe Newell, kind of famed for trolling right now.
If Gabe Newell had a mustache, he would be twirling it in an evil fashion right now.
Well, I was actually going to say, a lot of people have actually made the joke that the troll face that goes around online is just Gabe Newell doing a portrait of himself. I mean, you can't tell a difference. So I'm just going to kind of open this up to people because there isn't a whole lot. They're not saying what they're talking about. Obviously, it's a public press conference, which probably means they have a big announcement, but it doesn't necessarily need to be Half-Life 3. And frankly, given I don't mean to burst Steam or Valve fans' bubbles. I'm a Valve fan too, but it's been so freaking long. I don't even know if Gabe Newell remembers the premise of Half-Life anymore. So I don't know if it's all that likely. The comparison that I actually made to Alex before we started was I see this more as like Gabe throws us all for a loop and says, you know what? You know how we said we didn't have a Steam box? We totally had a Steam box. And we're coming out this year, So that's kind of my speculation. Alex, what do you think the speculation is for what Gabe has to announce at GDC?
Well, you're probably right about the Steam box, but we never know. Valve may finally learn how to count to 3.
Could have been.
What comes after 3? What comes after 2, Valve? Not 2.5, not 2.
I don't think Valve's the problem. 3. I think Gabe is the problem.
What?
I think Gabe may not be able to count to 3.
Okay. Gabe cannot. Okay, Gabe, it's time to learn how to count to 3. Okay? I think we're ready. We're ready to learn.
How many prequels have gone up on Steam, and he's just like, what is that? What's that supposed to be?
What is this number 3?
This extra line.
Well, maybe it's not so much that he doesn't know how to count. Maybe he does, and just doesn't want to. Maybe he's like a Patty Shallow, which is like, what comes after 2?
It's like Yoda. So it's like fear leads to anger leads to hate. 3 leads to 4, 4 leads to 5, and he just doesn't want to do Half-Life 6.
It's true. Maybe he's afraid of the curse of the 3-qual. You ever consider that?
It could be. I mean, there's a reason Gabe has not done this. In fact, one of the things I found very funny is like there is kind of a stigma to the number 3 with Valve, because we had Left 4 Dead 2 come out, and then the Left 4 Dead team went to go work on Evolve. So it's just like, you guys don't like 3, do you? You just don't like the number 3.
It's probably not even just the number 3. It's probably that because they don't want to get into the habit of making like larger franchises, because they probably see companies like Ubisoft and how they kind of run stuff like Assassin's Creed dry, and so maybe they just stop at a second game and move on to kind of prevent that. That's my theory, at least.
I mean, and let's just say for the sake of argument, this is Half-Life 3. How many people are, like, a lot of the Valve fans that I have talked to have just been thoroughly convinced it's not happening and moved on. You know, they came back and played Portal 2, and they played the Left 4 Dead series, but they're just thoroughly convinced Gordon Freeman is never going to don their PCs ever again. I mean, is there enough of a... Yes, I get it. The trope is there. The meme is there. Half-Life 3 confirmed. We just barely did it. But if they actually were to announce Half-Life 3, would it be like the biggest thing ever to happen?
Probably not, especially when you consider the fact that I think the biggest thing that Valve would probably be afraid of is probably having a repeat of either the Daikatana incident or the Duke Nukem Forever incident, where just all that development time releasing a disappointing game that just can't answer, that just cannot respond to any of that build-up, that cannot deliver on any of that build-up.
No, exactly. And, I mean, it's been, I think the last Half-Life game was Episode 2, and that was in 2007. So we're already looking at 8 years since Half-Life Episode 2, or Half-Life 2 Episode 2. So at this point, is it even plausible for them to come out with Half-Life 3 and have it, you know, come out to screaming success? And if I'm wrong, I'll totally admit that. You know, I'll admit I'm not a Half-Life fan. Maybe one of the things that me and you, Alex, will have to do is, like, if they confirm it's Half-Life 3, then guess what just got added to our rotation for LPs?
Indeed. Crazier things have happened. You're probably right. This is probably nothing. This is probably not Half-Life 3 confirmed. We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, or it could be, I mean, for all we know, it could be Half-Life 2 Episode 3, which technically isn't a 3. Because it isn't Half-Life 3, it's Half-Life 2 Episode 3.
So strictly speaking,
Revenge of the
like,
Sith.
what, the 5th?
Yeah, that's what's going to happen, is like Half-Life 2, Episode 4, 5, 6. He's okay with that. Because that's Half-Life 2.
Yeah, unless he decides to maybe just go for a broken start from the beginning again. I mean, given that the game itself, that Half-Life 2 Episode 2 hasn't aged particularly well, if they wanted to try to bring that audience back, that would probably be the best option, especially when you consider the success of the Telltale games with its episodic structure, and given that you want to reinform people about the world of Half-Life, informing them about the groups like Black Mesa and how it somehow ties into the Portal universe, that would, if they were to try to do a follow-up to Half-Life, that would be how they would have to do it. They would basically just have to start over, tell the story from the beginning using the new updated technology to get people who aren't familiar with any of Valve's stuff up to speed.
Well, and I'm kind of glad you brought that up. I mean, that actually might be another direction that they would go, is that Half-Life has not aged well as far as its engine or anything like that. Would a reboot of the original Half-Life or Half-Life 2 be more plausible also to...
Well, that's kind of what Half-Life was, because it was a reboot of the game Black Mesa.
Yeah. I don't know. I think Gabe is just going to throw us all for a loop, because that's what Gabe is known to do. And I will be honest, the following week after this has happened, we will follow up, and we will discuss whether or not we were right or wrong, or whether or not it was the right thing for Gabe to do, to be able to start counting to 3. I swear, he has a vengeful streak against the Count from Sesame Street or something like that, because I can't explain that any other way. So let's go ahead and get into the next story here. And this one, I don't know about you, Romney or Alex, but when I saw this posted up in our little news thread, it blew my freaking mind. So, Dying Light, first of all, is there anybody here who's played that?
No.
I'll admit,
Nope.
This is the first time I've ever heard of it.
I've seen my brother watching Let's Plays on it, and that's about it. That, and I also saw Yahtzee's Zero Punctuation review.
Yeah, so This is the first time I'm ever hearing about it, but apparently Dying Light is going to have a special edition. It got announced, and it's in the UK, and it actually comes out to £250,000, because I don't think they're euros yet.
Yeah, those are pounds. That's the logo.
Yeah. But it comes around to about $386,000, and it packs in tons of extras. So I'm just going to kind of point out what they're adding to people so they can look forward to it or whatnot, and then I'll put in my opinion. Custom-built Dying Light Zombie Home by Tiger Log Cabins. You can have a zombie avoidance parkour lessons with Ampisound, the team behind the internet smash Dying Light parkour POV video. You can also have the zombie matches with devs, where you win so you can brag to your friends how elite you are. You can have a trip to Techland in Wrocław, Poland, to meet the dev team and party with Steve the zombie consultant. Your face can be skinned onto the Night Hunter character model. Dying Light branded night vision goggles plus adult diapers for the night portions of the game. You can have 4 signed Steelbox editions of Dying Light. You can have 2 top-of-the-line Razer Tiamat headphones. You can have a human-sized volatile figurine to use as a deterrent on human raiders. That being said, okay, I'm a Final Fantasy fan, and I did not pay $250 for the whole freaking collection. What makes you think I'm going to pay $386,000?
Yeah, this definitely reeks of the developer kind of putting the cart before the horse here.
I looked everywhere to see if this was a joke. I really did, and I could not find anybody actually saying, yeah, dude, we were totally kidding. No, this is the story that stands, at least as far as I was able to find. If people can find other stories that say it is a joke, please tell me. I need the peace of mind. I really need $386,000. That's a mansion.
Yeah,
that's paying for their mansion.
Well, not really a mansion, but come on, you could buy a house and not have to make monthly payments with that type of money.
I could build a mock Arclay mansion, hire a cast, and recreate the horrible dialogue from Resident Evil on that budget.
And it would still be better than the Paul W.S. Anderson films.
Yes, it would. Yes. I hate to say this. Maybe somebody needs to talk me off the ledge. Maybe $386,000. No, I can't justify this. Not for a game.
That just sounds like an over-ambitious Kickstarter perk. I mean, I understand these are the same people that made Dead Island, and Dead Island didn't do that well, but they can't really be that strapped for money, can they?
I don't think they... I still believe this is a joke. Because there's no way this can be real. There's no way a game company could look at this and say, yeah, we're totally going to make money off this. No way. Now, I'm actually going to defer things to the person who actually brought this article to it. Why did you break my brain, Alex? Why did you break my brain?
Because it broke my brain, and I needed to see if you guys could make some sense out of it. I have no idea what the hell this is.
I don't either! What?
It seems to be somewhere between a Kickstarter, a publicity stunt, an extremely high-valued special edition.
Yes.
I thought, like, what, is this like the oldest video game known to mankind? When I saw the price tag, and no, this is something new.
Well, yeah, and this is coming with a lot of real-world
this really quick to people, because I just barely noticed that coming with this story on my screen. Let's see if I can actually bring this up here. So this is appropriate. I'm getting a Pampers ad when this thing is talking about adult diapers. I have no comment. I have nothing. What the crap?
I thought maybe this was like some sort of real-life zombie survival fantasy camp.
Well, given the kind of real-world perks you're getting, I mean, it's not like the zombie shelter is something in-game. It's actually a real-world zombie shelter that they build.
No, this would be like a cabin retreat or something like that. So,
yeah.
I mean, maybe that's where the $300,000 comes in mind.
Yeah, and not to mention the like, real-world zombie shelter, plus a round-trip ticket to Poland, which is where the developers are, and parkour lessons. So, yeah, this is kind of a pretty pricey thing. It's almost like you're basically paying for like a huge weekend sort of thing, but you also get this game as well, particularly 4 signed Steelbox editions of said game.
Yeah, so I would assume you're getting it signed by the entire development team. Yeah, this is red carpet treatment, but I'm just kind of looking at this practically. I don't see anybody doing it.
If anyone's going to do it, they're going to have a lot of money to burn through, because there's no way your typical gamer could possibly do this.
I mean, here's the thing. Trust fund kids could probably do it, but like I'm looking at this from a practicality standpoint. I will pay $60 for a game. I might even justify $100 for a collector's edition at some point. But $386,000.
Yeah, I think this reaction here on the comments page pretty much summarizes it.
Pretty much. This is just what the... I love it. It's just like he's checking his eyes. What the crap? This can't be real. That's kind of the justification here, but yeah, I don't know if we can really add anything more to this. This is just what the crap were they... I mean, for this, yeah, I would expect red carpet freaking treatment. But
I just noticed that the picture, he's wearing goggles, so his eyes, the goggles do nothing.
Exactly. He's the goggle kid from Digimon that nobody ever knew about.
Which one? There's more than one.
Oh, don't tell me that. Oh great. No, I'm gonna be.
It's the lost goggle kid, basically.
Okay, we need to get off this story because it's blowing my mind. It's blowing Alex's brain, and I think we're getting to Romney a little bit, but he's making.
Yeah, it's just because I really doubt anybody is going to pay this much money, except, I mean, given that they say it's specifically in euros, I'm guessing this is probably limited to people who live in Europe. So, who knows? Maybe Prince Harry probably is a fan of Dying Light. Who knows?
That would be the case. And that would make sense, I guess. But, oh, jeez. So let's go ahead and get into the next story here. And this one is, I kind of wish we could have had Aldo for it, but him and me had kind of had a talk about it, both online as well as text, just to kind of clarifying what this was about. So Riot is apparently pissed off at a League of Legends streamer. Now, the first question that would come to your mind is, why are they pissed off at a streamer? Well, it turns out that a guy is actually like running. I don't think he's running like a spectator mode, but he has a deal with a streaming platform that grants him exclusive rights to matches, and I don't believe those matches are his own. He's actually watching other popular players duke it out.
Well, from the looks of the article, it's not so much like a particular. Basically, what it is that there's the streamer who has an exclusivity deal with a streaming platform, and then you have someone else who is streaming those same matches using the spectator mode in League of Legends on Twitch, which is kind of breaching the whole arrangement that the original streamer has the streaming platform, which is why Riot is getting kind of agitated.
Yeah, because technically, I mean, because Twitch is, I think it's automatic monetization, isn't it? Like, you are getting ad revenue from it?
Mm-hmm. It's something like that. I'm not even sure if it is automatic revenue, but it is kind of the case of, it's kind of the equivalent of, remember, like back when Twitch, when people would just put up like streams of TV channels where they would just show episodes of anime and stuff like that, usually for free without permission from the companies. It's kind of a similar deal, at least according to the Kotaku article that we're all taking a look at.
And so at that point, I mean, at least the way that I understand Twitch is that when you start up, you are enabled for monetization as long as you don't do anything stupid. That may be different with the Amazon merger, but at least that's the way I think that it runs. So at this point, he is earning money for not doing a darn thing except for spectating.
Mm-hmm.
So this is kind of why I wanted to have Aldo on, because Aldo's comparison was, well, I couldn't tell you if it was offensive or not. But apparently Aldo actually was making the comparison. He's like, I get it. So I can watch Drax LPs online, earn money, even though Drac isn't. To which my comment in the agenda that we have for tonight is he took my job. He took my he took my job.
Yeah, except not took your job, took my money.
He took my money. He didn't take my job. My job is right there, but he took my money. So at that point, I mean, at least from what I've been able to gather on this story, Riot has a reason to be able to be a little frustrated with it. Especially since it does sound to me like it violates that agreement.
Mm-hmm.
So at that point,
Riot,
go ahead.
well, yeah, both Riot and the person who's actually playing the games have both issued like cease and desists to this guy who's been streaming these matches on Twitch, and the guy is like trying to say, "Oh yeah, like well you show streams." He's basically trying to defend these actions, but to be honest,
he was trying to use like fair use and all that for being able to do this. That's stretching.
He doesn't really have a leg to stand on. I mean, he's not playing any of the games. He's basically using a spectator mode and is streaming these games without permission from the person who he's actually watching. And
that's the biggest problem here, is that he doesn't have that permission. But he's making money off of it. At least that's my guess here. Actually, I'm glad you clarified that, because I was wondering if actual action had been actual action. This is Drax's finest hour. He's finding words to put together for no reason. There's actually action being taken on this, and I think there should be.
Well, yeah, and there's even actually a quote from Lucian, who he made a post. I think this is a post that Lucian issued in response to Faker's team and SK Telecom. Let's hide the angry cow before it gives everybody any more nightmares.
Put ramen. That's what you do. Let's see. Here's the quote.
Here's the quote. I know some people will disagree with this and bring up ethics, but I think this whole issue is about a lot more than Faker. It's about Riot not enforcing their own legal terms of service. It's about a co-owner of Riot Games being completely out of touch with esports and the spectator mode. It's about a company, Azubu, issuing a false DMCA claim for content they didn't even own. These are issues that will affect the future of gaming, of the future of the game, and the spectator mode. All of this needs to be debated for the future of League of Legends and esports. So now he's trying to kind of take the moral high ground. It's like, oh yeah, this is all about the major issue of who owns the content, but really, dude, you are not actually playing the games. You do not own this stuff. If you were actually playing the game and then they were coming after you, that's one thing. But you don't have a leg to stand on, Lucian. Not at all.
Yeah. The problem here is, like, if he was... Let's just jump off the deep end here really quick. If he was like... He wanted to be a documentarian and cover this guy's team. But even then, you would need permission from the team to do it. He has gotten nothing along those lines, and yet he's screaming, "Freedom of speech! Freedom of speech!" No. Because this is not even... You're not even permitted to do this. You're skirt-tailing off of other people's work. And in some cases, like, I believe this guy is one of the competitors, isn't he? So, already, this is kind of his bread and butter. That's kind of an issue. So, yeah, I'm not on this guy's side. Alex, I mean, from what you have been able to hear, where are you on this?
I had no idea really what to make of the story when I read it, but you guys have kind of helped clarify it a bit more for me. But it sounds like, he doesn't have much. He's spectating a stream, and that's about it. It's not like he's adding his own brand of commentary. He's not parodying it, so I don't see any fair use leg for him to stand on either.
No, in fact, this would be one of those rare points where I actually would say, like, YouTube come down on this guy hard, or Twitch come down on this guy hard, or Riot, and I think they would be well within their rights to be able to do so. So we'll keep in touch on this one, because I actually do want to get Aldo's opinion on it, and I want to see a resolution on it. I want to see, like, Riot, their actions go through, because I think they've got the lay of the land here.
Yeah, because the biggest issue, and the reason why this is actually such a dangerous thing for Faker, who's the player whose matches are being streamed, is that stuff like this could cost him the endorsement that is actually paying for those streams to take place, which is why Azubu, the company that paid for the endorsement, that is paying to have him stream those streams exclusively on their platform, that's why they're taking an issue, because they're just like, yo, you're basically taking money away from us. And again, a lot of people are reading in the comments of some of these people. Some people are trying to explain why Twitch hasn't done anything because they're afraid of being the bad guy. But no, Twitch would be justified if they stopped Lucian's stream, because Lucian has no leg to stand on. I don't get why he thinks that he's like, oh, freedom of speech, fair use. Oh, this will decide like esports. Dude, just no. Let's issue the whole carte blanche statement now. We are not lawyers, so we do not know if there's any major legal stuff.
No.
But yeah.
Well, there's financial dealings, so there's legal stuff involved. But I mean, the bottom line also is that I don't think Twitch runs off of a strike system like YouTube does. They're implementing something along those lines, but I don't think it's there yet. So, this may be, people might think I'm a hypocrite for saying this, but yeah, I think you could come down with a ban hammer on this one until it gets resolved. I mean, that would actually be in Twitch's best interest, because at this point, they're also being exploited. And so in order to cover their butts, it would be totally acceptable for them to just say, nope, you're done until this gets resolved. If it comes down in your favor, sure, we'll be happy to restore your account, but until then, it's suspended.
Well, yeah, especially since I doubt the people at Twitch would want to get sued by the people over at Azubu, which is more or less a rival streaming site. And I'm surprised they haven't removed the stream at all, because that would be a pretty good reason to stop a stream if it runs the risk of having you sued.
Well, and here's the bottom line of it. I mean, Twitch is going to take the same approach to this as YouTube would. They don't want to get sued. That's just the bottom line of it. So I think if this actually does get involved with them, Twitch will take an action, but they will take an action basically to cover their own butts. And at that point, they'll suspend the channel and say, you guys need to resolve this out in court. Until then, you can't stream this content or any content under this name. I'm just kind of, we're going to get off the story, I promise, folks, but it just blows my mind this guy is screaming out freedom of speech, fair use. Because, holy crap, I am all for being able to work with the game companies and all that. I'm a Let's Player, I get that concept. But if you're just spectating on somebody who's highly competitive, that's taking crap out of other people's wallets, that's messing around with sponsors. And especially in this case, if this guy's pro, I mean, he has a sponsorship with Nike or whatever. And so they're investing money towards his cause. And at that point, you're removing that from him. And so at that point, I just don't condone it. When we get a resolution, I might have a different opinion, but right now I'm not for this guy, and I don't think a fair use argument can be made. So with that said, people can hate me if they want. That's fine. Let's go ahead and get into the next story here. And again, when Aldo gets back, we're going into this with him, because this is totally his territory, and I actually do want to know his opinion on it. So Aldo, you heard me. You have an opinion. It's called Geek News Reviews and Opinions. Raccoons. All right.
We call upon the mighty raccoon gods to summon Aldo Gomez.
I am the great and mighty raccoon god.
You sound more like Ninja.
You don't sound like Ninja. I blame Romney because of his Super Sentai review. Holy crap, man. So let's go ahead and get into the next story here, which also kind of irritated me with the game industry. So a lot of people might actually know that The Order 1886 came out, and this is one of the most anticipated titles that we've heard of thus far on the PS4. I'm not excluding things like Kingdom Hearts 3, but this was like the earliest that was going to come out. And so it's out now, and the reviews are kind of mixed. It's more of a glorified okay than anything else. I have not seen, like, maybe on Metacritic there may have been like a 2 out of 10 somewhere, but most of the stuff that I've seen has been like D's and C's. It's doable. It's a good first entry. We'd like to see more. Do this again and see what you can improve on. Maybe you'll get a better score off of that. But Santa Monica, who developed it, for those who don't know, Santa Monica is also involved in the God of War series. So this is kind of a new stretch for them. So one of their devs actually came out. His name is Dean Reimer. Came out on his Twitter and actually just basically said that he just doesn't think that review copy should ever be sent out, because he does not believe that this is a bad game. This is, to quote his tweets, this is not a 6 out of 10. I'm curious why we even bother sending review copies. And so, while I get he's frustrated, and trust me when I say this, we're going to get into this game, because, I mean, we were talking about it before, we're going to get into it now, to see whether or not Dean Reimer is right. But the bottom line is that I'm a little upset with what Dean's actions were on the matter. Because while I don't think, if it's a glorified okay game, I don't think that's a bad thing. They're not giving it 3 out of 10.
Yeah, though this does highlight kind of one of the problems we have with gaming journalism, and just because, for example, with my film reviews and with a lot of other film reviews, we use a 1 through 5 system, which makes it pretty easy to understand whether things are good, whether things are bad. Yet gaming uses a 1 through 10 system, and I don't know, that just does not seem like a really good system, especially when you have sites like Metacritic pulling all these reviews, and given that there's no like consistent criteria that all these reviewers use, which is what causes all these Metacritic scores to be all over the place.
Yeah. The other problem that I kind of wanted to get into with you, Romney, is, and I've seen this in my time, in fact, I've been accused of it a couple of times, where a lot of people will actually kind of take the stance of, well, it's easy to review something horribly. And here's the thing. Yes, it is. I can call out the crap for whatever I see in a game. And one of the things that I actually will kind of fault reviewers for these days is it's kind of the in thing to call the negatives. I love it when a game actually, or when a reviewer steps out and calls a good game a good game. In fact, one of the things that I will applaud James Earl for is, he's not considered a reviewer by any stretch. He's doing this all for the comedy, and he actually had the fortitude to say that the worst game in history isn't that bad, and made a compelling argument for it. So at this point, yes, it is kind of easy to get sent your review copy and just talk crap about it. And I've seen a lot of reviewers just do. In fact, I'm convinced there are some solid people on Reddit and Metacritic that just do that. Because everything you see from those posters is like 3 out of 10 or 10% or whatnot. And it's just like, okay, so you see nothing positive in this at all?
Yeah.
And this is like stuff for like Super Mario 3D World.
Yeah.
So.
Well, yeah, and it just gets kind of tough because I understand, and even as someone who tried to transition into reviewing games from reviewing movies, I understand. Reviewing a game isn't easy. You only have a certain amount of time to play the review copy, or you only have a certain amount of time after buying your own copy to play it and be able to form a coherent opinion stating whether or not the game is worth money. And so I get that. I get that there's a lot of factors to consider, but it gets kind of difficult because I think a lot of people tend to latch on doing the negative stuff because you see people like Angry Joe, who doesn't always do the whole angry, explosive reviews. No. But people see videos like that where he is angry and explosive, like with his review of DMC Devil May Cry, and people think, oh, if I do like that, then my videos and my reviews will get popular. Because even Yahtzee Crowshaw, yeah, he does his zero punctuation reviews, but he also does separate reviews on The Escapist that are separate from his character on Zero Punctuation, that are actually honest reviews, that actually go through his honest opinions about the games, and actually approaches it as a journalist. But the problem is that people tend to conflate the two, where they think they have to be a sort of a character doing these reviews, instead of giving an honest opinion, which is kind of why I like Pro Jared's review, because Pro Jared gives an honest and frank opinion about the games he plays.
Yeah, and since you brought up Pro Jared, I mean, he does 2 separate versions of a review, too. He sums it up in 1 minute or less, and then, whether or not it's good or it's bad, and gives kind of his opinion. And literally, like an hour later, he's putting up a more in-depth review saying, here's why it's good, here's why it's bad, and going with that. So I actually will applaud people like Pro Jared or the Zero Punctuation. I actually do like a lot of his reviews because I think he hits a lot of the good points. So we've hit that part of it. But I actually, in my opinion, both sides are kind of wrong. Because the other problem with this is that, just to give kind of an update on the story, guys, yes, to be clear, Dean Reimer has no ability to refuse review copies. or pull ad campaigns, which is what his tweets were basically saying. He's like, holy crap, if you're going to speak nothing but crap about our game, we might as well just pull our ad campaign for you. And he's in the wrong, too, because the bottom line is, it's just like Jim Sterling last year. Look, the developers do not have to like your review, but if you just talk smack and then you claim copyright crap or whatever you're going to do so you don't get the bad publicity, but you might deserve it.
Well, yeah, it's like with the whole Total Biscuit Day 1 Gary's Incident thing where they pulled his video, and that did nothing to help them. It didn't make the game sell more. It basically just made them look even worse.
Especially when Total Biscuit put out a separate video and said, here's where I'm in the right, step 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and yes, this is just them being a bunch of D-bags. And you know what? They deserve to have that happen. The same people who did it to Jim Sterling deserve that to happen. You know, I'm actually wondering, because you brought up Angry Joe, and here's the thing. I don't always agree with Angry Joe. I always look at his reviews as more entertaining than anything else, because I like things like Corporate Commander. That's funny to me. But the bottom line is that there are things I disagree with him on. Mm-hmm. I don't think DMC Devil May Cry is that bad. The Virgil DLC we'll have a different talk about. But the game itself I didn't have much issues with. It's just an interesting take.
Well, yeah, and that's just another thing that people just kind of need to understand is that it's okay to not agree with these people. Just because you watch their videos doesn't mean you have to follow every single thing they say. I mean, for example, I did research on a game that I bought on my birthday that got some pretty bad Metacritic reviews, but I've actually been enjoying it. El Shaddai, Ascension of the Metatron, it's currently in the yellow Metacritic, but it's actually a pretty decent game.
And I'll be the first to admit, I have played games that people on Metacritic have panned, and I like them. So the bottom line is like, you know, I'm trying to just sum this up. I think both sides are kind of wrong on this, and maybe I'm the only one thinking it, because it's not right to, you know, let people do their reviews, okay? And they have a right to be able to state their opinions, but it's just that. It's their opinions.
And
people
with the game developers, and with the game developers, again, it's like with any medium, like film, books, even painting, you have to learn to take criticism in stride because, I mean, you may try your absolute best. I mean, I'm actually kind of reminded of the film Big Eyes with how Christoph Waltz's character kind of explodes with the criticism, even though the character didn't actually paint any of those paintings. But with any art form, you have to learn to get a bit of a thick skin. I mean, I've had comments on my videos calling me out on stuff that I did pretty poorly, but really, if the people of Santa Monica want to actually improve, then they should look at some of the actual honest criticisms of the Order 1886. We think, okay, well, what are the common complaints players are having, and kind of look at that. And yeah, the game's already packed and stuff, but that's how you learn and improve in any major art form. Especially if you're a game development company, you need to kind of learn to look at that criticism and see maybe if it's something that you can address either with a future patch or maybe even just with your next release. And so, yeah, and that's kind of the thing that social media has kind of made a bit problematic, is that it's very easy to have the equivalent of a public meltdown and having it stuck on the internet. I mean, that was the whole thing with the film Chef with Jon Favreau, is that he has that huge public meltdown where he's yelling at the food critic, and it gets him fired, costs him his job, forces him to go into a food truck. And it's the same basic things, that the internet's kind of exacerbated that problem. So really, both sides just need to kind of chill, let the honest reviewers do their thing, let the game developers take it in stride, hopefully learn from the criticism without losing their heads.
Yes. So we're going to get to Alex's opinion on this too, because I'm sure he's a gamer. He reviews anime, so he's got some things to say. So, but the bottom line that I'm kind of getting from the story is both sides are kind of wrong. The bottom line. I mean, the first you brought up the concept of Big Eyes. The first thing that came to my mind was, and I'm still gonna get filleted on YouTube, and I don't care because I don't hold a lot of the majority opinion. Final Fantasy 13 comes out, and everybody hates it, and it is almost the in thing to hate it. I don't hate it. I think it's actually a good told story. Am I saying that it isn't flawed? Absolutely not. It's got some issues. But the bottom line is that I actually feel like I'm in the major minority because I actually am willing to admit that I like the game. And I actually think it actually got to a point where it was like the in thing to hate it.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the exact kind of same thing. It's the in thing here to take a review, and because you're on the interwebs, you can just write absolute crap, and that affects the developer. You know, the one thing that a lot of people don't consider is that these are creative individuals, and they are worried every step of the process of what you're going to think of their game, because it's their livelihood. It's what they've been working on for years. And, you know, the perfect example I would actually like to point out before we go to Alex, and I actually think this is where it was handled brilliantly, and if I don't have all the details of the story, feel free to correct me, guys. But I still remember when, I can't remember the company, but when the XCOM remake was being done, like they were going to re-release it. And originally the idea for it was first-person shooter. And so they brought in a lot of, at that time, YouTubers and reviewers that were diehard XCOM fans. And what happened right after that is probably one of the Spoony One's most defined moments on YouTube, the screaming of betrayal, and him and Angry Joe just going nuts on this XCOM game. Now, here's the thing. The company could have lashed out at them and just said, you are not invited to this stuff whatsoever. They actually did the right thing where they actually reached out and they said, okay, what didn't you like? How can we fix it? And they actually had a dialogue with them. And that's what needs to happen in that regard, is that we all think that, you know, our poop can be gold. I hate to go for that analogy, but we're going for it. We all can tend to think that. But sometimes it isn't, and sometimes some criticism is worth it. But criticism can also go too far. So, with that said, I'm just going to say my Flame Shield battery is still up. And Alex, we've talked over you for quite a while here, and I'm sure you're an anime reviewer. You kind of know this kind of thing, or these kind of arguments that can be made. What is your take on this whole thing?
Well, I guess in some defense of the poor guy, it was just tweets out of frustration at least. It's not like he pulled the Gary's incident card here and threw the banhammer, but yeah, I don't think you want to withhold press copies. That usually screams head for the hills. This is a bad product if they're not going to try and screen it for critics at least. They did that with Sonic Boom, actually. Sega embargoed any reviews for that game. Well, we kind of saw how that all turned out.
Yes, we really did. So it's just one of those cases where I'd like to say there's a good and a bad, but really they both kind of had the bad idea.
Mm-hmm.
So let people cool down, hopefully. And here's the thing, too. This has kind of spurred me on taking on the order. I want to see if it's as bad as Metacritic says it is. And if it isn't, I'll be Dean, if you're listening, I'll be the first one to say you have a kick-butt game, if it's a kick-butt game. I have no problem saying that. So, with that said, that's actually going to be it for the tech segment here. And I can't even believe it. We actually took an hour. So let's go ahead and get into the entertainment segment because we got some stuff to talk about. So, what better way to start off than with Power Rangers? I really wish I had a Go-Go Power Rangers to play right there.
Yeah.
So, thankfully we've had one person who has actually seen this thing. At least, Alex, have you seen it?
No, I've not seen it.
Okay, and I wasn't able to get it because it's been yanked. So, apparently, a guy named, I think it's Joseph Kahn.
Yeah, Joseph Kahn and Adi Shankar.
Okay, so they apparently decided to do a gritty reboot of Power Rangers, and their justification was making it Power/Rangers, which just confuses it all the more. And this apparently had some pretty big stars doing this film. You had Katie Sackhoff, and you also had James Van Der Beek. I would actually make the argument that I'm kind of surprised we all know who James Van Der Beek still is, because I haven't seen him do jack.
I honestly don't know who he is, so.
I don't know either.
Wow. Okay, well, I have a sister, and so I know Dawson's Creek. So there you go. I guess this happens when you have a... Well, no, you both have sisters. This should have happened.
Yeah, my sister was more into Felicity than she was Dawson's Creek, so...
Well, and Alex, he's got a justification, too.
I think you should know Andrea never watched Dawson's Creek.
No, she never did, because I've actually had that conversation. She's like, what's Dawson's Creek? But then again, she also said, what's Beverly Hills 90210? So maybe the Valley girls need to go have a talk with her.
Yeah, she never got into the whole spelling primetime dramas.
Yes,
yeah.
She's not. She's into her own thing.
Yeah, my sister was into Felicity, then she discovered Xena Warrior Princess, and it went from there.
Yeah, my sister discovered Xena, and then she went to Buffy. So back onto the story, because we're having weird conversations now. So Joseph Kahn decided to do a reimagining of I'm guessing the original series of Power Rangers, except darker and grittier and more of the browns and grays. And, well, they put it out. It's like a 14-minute video, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. It was.
Yeah, it was. Until Saban found out about it, and even some former cast members of Power Rangers found out about it and put scathing reviews of it, to which I like David Frank and all, but not sure I like his action on this.
He's gotten a bit of a swelled head in recent years, to be honest, especially with some of the statements he's made about the Ricardo Medina incident.
So the bottom line is that because of these statements, this film got yanked from Vimeo and YouTube. Mainly because I think they're just covering their butts because Saban's now involved.
Yeah, I don't think it's so much because of the statements. I think it's just more Saban brands trying to protect the Power Rangers brand more. At least that's how they're viewing it.
Especially with a 2016 film in the works, which is supposedly going to reboot Mighty Morphin.
Not to mention that they've also been trying to get the series kind of geared up again with Samurai, Megaforce, and now most recently Dino Charge. Are kind of trying to get back to that stride they had before they had to sell it to Disney.
Exactly. So at this point, they are trying to protect that property as best they can, and so they had the video yanked. You can still supposedly get the Facebook thing to work. I couldn't. I looked it up, and I couldn't get the video to work. In fact, it looked like it had been yanked from Facebook, too.
Yeah.
But obviously, we've also had Joseph Kahn and his partner come out and make their statements on this, thinking it's unfair, because they were just doing their interpretation of what they would like to see from a Power Rangers film.
Yeah, and then I do and I agree with them that this is kind of a stupid precedent where a company that, they own the rights to Power Rangers, but this is a fan film, and
yes,
they haven't bothered any of the other people who've made fan films. I know there's the Zordon of Eltar fan film. There have been numerous Power Rangers fan films, and this is one that they're singling out. It's a very dangerous thing because then you kind of go into, well, does it fall under parody or not? It's iffy. But
and here's the thing. DBZ fan films are made all the time. Street Fighter fan films are made all the time.
There's a lot of DC fan films made all the time, but Warner Brothers doesn't go after them.
Exactly. The other thing that came to mind was like the fan-made script that eventually got the writer into the Power Rangers team.
Yeah, Scorpion's Reign.
I'm sure somebody's done that, at some point. But the bottom line is that they are one-shot films. They're fan films, and this guy might have been earning money off of it. Maybe that's what got Saban mad. But I think really it was just that they were worried this would hurt the brand.
Yeah.
And really, they are doing everything in their power to keep this brand going on the momentum that it is. So at this point, and then I'm also going to go into Shankar's remarks on the matter. So he's actually been quoted in the story that we have from Anime News Network. Today I was deeply disappointed to learn that Saban Brands decided to attack my Power/Rangers bootleg universe one-shot film. To all the viewers that enjoyed this film, I consider this an outright infringement on freedom of expression and individualism. I'm not going to read the entire quote, but feel free to go look that up yourself. Here's where people are probably going to get a little mad at me. Yes, it is. Because this is his freedom to express his viewpoints. And here's the thing, I don't agree with those viewpoints. I actually like the fact that Power Rangers has still retained some of its quirkiness over the years. But I've made that argument for at least a couple of years now, where we don't need to have these dark and gritty heroes all the time. We can have genuine heroes. So at this point, even if I could get access to this video, it really sounds like I wouldn't like it. Now, the person who's actually seen it, let's get his opinion on this matter. So, Romney, you were actually able to see it.
Yeah, and kind of follow up on the thing of the whole, you may not agree with it. It's kind of goes into what the author Voltaire said, where I may not like what you say, but I'll defend to the death your right to say it. And it's kind of the same basic stuff. I personally didn't really like it, but I don't think Saban Brands had the right to take it down. I mean, it was a fan film, and they are kind of overstepping their bounds. Yeah, they could argue, well, we have to protect our brand, but really, it's not making them look good. And seeing the film, it feels like a concept trailer that kind of runs a little too long. I mean, it kind of reminded me of the Mortal Kombat reboot concept trailer that came out.
That's what I was kind of wondering, is if it was like that, where all the characters are serial killers.
Not so much where all the characters are serial killers. The idea, the basic summary of it is that the Machine Empire has taken over, and the framing device is that Rocky, who's defected to the Machine Empire, is interrogating Kimberly, trying to find where Tommy disappeared to, because basically the Machine Empire is trying to round up all the Rangers to take them out. So basically Rocky's defected, and Zack has defected. And that's the basic gist of it, is that he's interrogating Kimberly. Kimberly's describing what happened to Jason, what happened to all these other people, how they were sold out by Bulk and Skull, and how they were basically killed either fighting the Machine Empire or as the Machine Empire kind of took over the world, basically. And then it basically goes into brief vignette. It goes into one vignette following Zack, and this is kind of where we run into the problem of the concept trailer that goes on for way too long. Because here we have a fight scene with Zack as a Power Ranger, but now working under the employ of the Machine Empire. Let me get the creepy cow back off. So.
I was going to say, he is so angry, he turned his angry cow back on.
Yeah, basically, it goes into this fight scene, and it's a really well-constructed fight scene, but it was the same problem I had with the Mortal Kombat reboot trailer, where they had the entirety of the Johnny Cage fight scene, and it just goes on for way too long. I mean, everything else is cut like a concept trailer, but then they have these longer scenes that are supposed to be, that would function as scenes in much larger films, but just feel out of place. And I get the idea that it's supposed to be just kind of a reimagining, but also just kind of a case of how dark the actual premise is. I mean, the idea of giving these teenagers these powers and abilities to fight giant monsters and how that would actually affect them, I can get that, but I don't know. There was just some things I didn't quite like about it. It just seemed a bit too mean-spirited. It had some good ideas, but kind of the grittiness of it, and especially with just how they kind of tried to paint Zack as more or less an a-hole, but then try to keep some of the camp.
I think I saw an image of him. It's like a Wesley Snipes kind of Zack.
Kind of. And then they tried to paint him as sort of a Billy Blank sort of person who had to make these fitness tapes in order to pay the bills. And it's, again, it had some good ideas. I just didn't particularly care for most of it. The really good ideas I liked is that you basically have characters like Tommy kind of staying off the grid, kind of acting against the Machine Empire using kind of guerrilla tactics.
Yeah.
At the ending of it, and I guess there's no point in saying spoilers because we can't see it, the ending reveals that the Kimberly they were interrogating wasn't really Kimberly, but Rita Repulsa in disguise, who was waiting for Tommy to break in and basically smash everything up before revealing herself, and it was revealed that she's the one who led to the deaths of all the other Rangers. And that's where the trailer ends. And, again, some really neat ideas and concepts, which is kind of what this is supposed to be. It's not an actual pitch, more or less a what-if. I just didn't particularly care for kind of the layer of grit they were going for. If they cut the fight scene with Zack down a little bit, it might have been a bit better, because that's where you got into some of the tonal issues. Because, I mean, I like what they did with Billy and Billy.
Who was Zack fighting against?
Basically, the idea is that he works with the Machine Empire. They drop him into North Korea to take out a rebel faction, the North Korean government, who's still fighting back against the Machine Empire, and that's the basic gist of the scene, is that he drops down and is basically fighting in North Korea. And, yeah, I didn't particularly care for it, but...
I mean, just given that premise, I will agree with you. I think there are some interesting ideas that could have been done with that. In fact, one of the things that I found kind of interesting is that the Machine Empire taking over, this has kind of been done because I think the story of RPM is kind of the same concept. I don't know. I've been doing a lot of catch up with Power Rangers, but
yeah, RPM is kind of similar, except it's not specifically like the Machine Empire, but it is kind of a case of where a computer virus has kind of conquered the world, and that's what they're fighting against. And the idea of people like Rocky, people like Zack defecting, joining the winning side, that actually does seem kind of interesting, because if there was an actual case where the bad guys were winning, it would be interesting to see how many of them would switch sides, especially considering the fact that people like Tommy started out as villains. And that was even something that was kind of a major thing of the trailer, of whether or not Tommy was actually a good guy and whether or not he was still working for Rita or not, being kind of the focus of the interrogation. And yeah, it had some interesting ideas. It's just,
it sounds to me like it had some interesting concepts in theory, but I think I would kind of agree in the concept. It sounds very gritty, it sounds very dark, and I don't know if that's necessarily the direction I would want Power Rangers to go.
Yeah, and it's not so much the problem of the grit, it was just the case of it was too long. It needed to be cut down, like 14 minutes. I mean, if it was 14 minutes and they paced it right where you didn't have huge chunks devoted to fight scenes except for the fight scene at the end, it could have worked. But that was my problem with it, is that it was too long.
Okay. Alex, what are your opinions on this? Obviously, you haven't seen it, but you and I kind of had the same amount of information when we walked into it, and I think you and I kind of had the same opinion on the matter, but I might be wrong about it.
Yeah, pretty much. I think I recall even hearing about this a while ago. Like, maybe I saw a headline on a news site, like, this is what a gritty Power Rangers would look like, and I'm like, no, come on. This is a show for kids, for Pete's sake. I don't care if the Super
Power Rangers is not one of those series that needs to go Christopher Nolan. Okay.
Yeah. No. I mean, sure. I'm sure the original Sentai series have some dark and angsty moments, whatever.
They balance it out. That's the thing. Is that with even the best example is Mirai Sentai Time Ranger, which became Time Force. They both had their fair share of dark moments, but they balance it out with the more lighthearted stuff. It's the Don Bluth theory. Kids can handle anything if you give them the happy ending.
Yeah, and that's the way I see it. Do I agree with Saban here? Not entirely. I feel bad for the guy that he had to get his video pulled, but technically Saban is in the right here. I mean, I guess you could try and put this under fair use, but it's not really parody satire. I know some people are trying to pass it off as satire, but I don't see it. I think it's just like the director's like, I watched Power Rangers as a kid, and what would it be like if it was all dark and violent and stuff, dude?
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, the only way that I would see like a justified action here from Saban is if this hit a little too close to home, like their story was similar to this, and at that point, I would actually say maybe you need to rewrite your script, because I really do think a darker angle is not going to go over well. The bottom line is and I like how Andre the Black Nerd put it, Power Rangers is still a kid's series.
Yeah.
It just happens to have a bunch of adults watching it. So at this point, and that's what people love about it. That's what people come flocking towards it for. So at that point, to take it in such a dark and gritty angle, it's just not, it doesn't work.
Yeah, you lose the charm.
Yeah, exactly.
Look at the first Power Rangers movie way back in the 90s. That was able, whatever you may think of the movie overall, but that was a movie that was able to kind of sport some production values, where the TV series is all the mix and match of stock footage and original footage. The movie managed to put in a bit of a budget and make it its own thing. And it was able to do it without having to get all absolutely serious, Christopher Nolan, Zack Snyder, Michael Bay, whatever. And as far as the creators go, I do feel for them. I really do. I imagine they did. From what a lot of people have said, this was a fan film with some serious production values as far as an amateur work goes.
Yeah.
I'm sure they put their heart and soul into it, and I'm sure they tried hard, and they wanted to make something that they were passionate about. Good on them. I know what it's like. I consume fan media. I watch anime music videos. I've read fan fiction. I've looked at a number of fan art. Hell, even myself, I've done something somewhat similar to this. I haven't made a fan film, but I actually wrote a screenplay, a hypothetical screenplay treatment to a live-action Mad Max film. That's how much
Oh,
of
for
a
a second there, I thought you were going to go to Chrono Trigger, because you've done that too.
I've
I
done
thought you
that
were
too.
gonna. Well, I thought you were gonna say you were like writing a live-action Evangelion script or something.
Oh
No,
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 you
I'm
didn't
not gonna
do
do
it.
Ava. No, I'm not gonna try live-action Ava. Plus ADD's already been trying that for years. That's not gonna happen. But
And here's the bottom line: is that unlike Hideki Anno, he would actually appreciate the fans and not want to give them a middle finger. So there's a difference right there.
pretty much.
Um, but yeah, I kind of agree on that concept. In fact, one of the things I find interesting about this is if people remember last year we were talking about the speculation that there was a possibility Katie Sackhoff had been put into the Marvel universe or the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Apparently, this Power Rangers film actually helped contribute to that because people actually caught her filming and thought she was doing something for the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So it's a little disappointing to me. I still hope the Marvel Universe considers her for Miss Marvel, but it's one of those things where I'm like, I guess I get why Katie was doing it, but at the same time, I just don't think it's the right angle. But I also don't think Saban's in the right. This is again like the other story. Both are kind of in the wrong in the matter, and I'm not trying to say that in a mean way. Saban's actions, Jason David Frank's actions, and I love Jason David Frank. This was not the way to go, especially when you have such a following behind you, and then you make this video. Because, look, I love you, Tommy, but the bottom line is, that's your opinion. And it's a Geek News reviews. And no, I'm not doing the plug. I'm not doing the plug. So with that said, I think we've all kind of hit it. It's probably not a good idea to do a gritty concept. And I swear, if this hit a little too close to home, Saban, you really need to rewrite that. Because I think a lot of people are looking at Power Rangers film as being something that will truly honor the legacy. A dark, gritty reboot will not honor that.
That's what I'm afraid of. I think a lot of people are gonna want dude, we need this Power Rangers reboot to be dark and gritty. Because I see the same reaction for just about everything.
We don't need a Christopher Nolan interpretation of Lord Zed. We don't need.
Agree.
No, the darkest I would ever see it. I mean, yeah, it could be a little bit dark, a little bit, but you still have to remember that it's an action-adventure series. It needs to have the balance of dark and light in order to work. I mean, even looking at some of the Sentai series that precede Ranger that would become Power Rangers, they get fairly dark, but they don't forget the fact that they are a superhero show. I mean, probably one of the darkest series would have to be Choju Sentai Live Man. And that actually deals, I mean, the very opening episodes deal with a lot of death and destruction, which is what motivates the three people to become the Rangers in that series. But they still remember the fact that, hey, this is a series for families. This is a lighthearted action-adventure series. We have some darkness, but we balance it out.
Well, and here's the thing, too, is like, and I've seen people actually make this argument that Power Rangers has never gone dark. I'm sorry, bullcrap. They've actually gone dark plenty of times, but they knew when to pull back. In a lot of cases, boys and girls, In Space was kind of a dark series because it didn't look for a lot of that time like there was going to be a happy resolution to it.
That's because they thought they were going to end the series there.
Yeah, and I would actually argue that there isn't kind of a happy resolution to it because, well, they had, spoiler alert, they had to kill Zordon. And nobody wanted them to kill Zordon. Another example that I would point out is RPM. Like, I just barely got exposed to that one, and that's a dark story.
Well, yeah, another good example would be Time Force, since it was trying to kind of follow the same tone as Time Ranger. And it's not even just that, oh yeah, there's death and destruction, but it also deals with the concept of bringing technology from the future back into the past and having that change the course of history. That's actually something that the characters deal with fairly frequently and becomes a major part of a story arc that kind of leads to a somewhat redemption of Rancic, because they develop the medication that would cure Rancic of his mutation, and thus he tries to get at it. And so, yeah, the series can get dark a little bit, but again, it's all about balance. I mean, especially when you consider how Wild Force starts. Wild Force, Cole comes out of the wild, goes into the city trying to find his long-lost parents, and that arc ends with him finding out that they've been dead for years.
Yeah, he finds their cold stones, you know. I will have my own issues about Wild Force, but that's actually one of those things where I thought it was really well done. And to a lot of people who want to say, well, the original one didn't. Are you kidding me? Green with Evil wasn't dark?
Yeah.
White Light wasn't dark? Dude, third season was them losing their powers?
Mm-hmm.
Him getting injured? Like, hospital injured? Yeah, it has dark angles, but just like Romney was saying, they knew how to balance it. They knew how to pull back and let it still be a family-oriented, a kid-oriented series.
Mm-hmm.
So, with that said, let's go ahead and get into the next story here, because this is going to brighten the mood for people, at least I hope. So, Alex, I'm just going to ask you a very simple question. It's very simple. I don't think you had to study for this. Are you ready?
Okay.
Is life always like a hurricane?
Yes, it is here in Duckville. Or Duckburg. Sorry.
Does it involve cars, lasers, and airplanes?
It's a duck blur.
You think we might solve a mystery?
Or rewrite history.
Ducktales? Woo! Coming back, boys and girls. So this happened, I think it was Wednesday when this got announced. Disney XD, which is now a solid channel, because I think I even watched it a couple times, where it was solidly on, like, it was where they debuted Earth's Mightiest Heroes and a couple of other things. But they have confirmed that DuckTales will be rebooted in 2017. Now, we don't have too many details on the matter. We know of a couple of characters that are going to show up. We don't know a voice cast, at least the way that I understand it. We don't. There are a couple of characters also missing, but this is, at least the way it looks, this is going to be a reboot of the series, not along the lines of a reimagining of it. Now, obviously, like any geek who loved DuckTales growing up, and I'm actually kind of surprised, I don't own the box sets. I really should. I'm excited, bottom line, for this, but I'm also worried because DuckTales has a bit of a legacy to it. So you could easily screw it up. And I already know that it's pretty much a guarantee. The name is escaping me. The guy who plays Scrooge, he's probably not coming back. Now, it's sad because he came back for DuckTales Remastered and did a lot of lines, but I don't think he's going to come back for a full-on series. And we also have confirmed that one of the more popular characters in the later seasons, Gizmo Duck, will not be returning. At least to our knowledge, he won't return. And also, we have confirmed that a lot of the main villains and the supporting cast are going to be coming back. Obviously, Huey, Dewey, and Louie are coming back. Webigail, I can't remember the butler's name, but Duckworth, they're coming back. Launchpad is coming back. Oh my gosh, how are they going to do jokes with him? Because he can't crash airplanes anymore. I don't think that's going to go over well with kids.
True.
Just saying.
Yeah.
The one thing that I'm excited about is that a lot of the old villains are going to be back. We're going to see reinterpretations of those villains. So Magica Dispel, Flintheart Glumgold, we're going to see these guys come back. Romney, Alex, what are your opinions about returning to Duckburg in 2017?
Well, the thing that interests me, actually, is that one of the characters that's listed as supporting cast is that they say they're going to have Donald Duck as part of the supporting cast, which interests me a bit because he's barely seen in the original DuckTales series because he's going on 2
episodes to him, like where he actually showed up.
Well, yeah, and the idea is that he's leaving them with Uncle Scrooge because he's going on a sailing voyage and can't take them with him. And so it'll be very interesting how they try to incorporate Donald into a lot of the mishaps that occur with Huey, Dewey, Louie, and Scrooge. That's going to be a bit of an interesting change to the dynamic because a lot of people, we haven't really seen like how Donald was when he took care of them, aside from really, really old Disney shorts and the very, very lackluster follow-up Quack Pack, which
don't follow that. Don't.
No Quack Pack.
No,
Quack Pack.
Don't do it. Just don't. Reconsider yourself. And if you're going to do Donald, please bring him in a little bit more actively. because it almost like as a kid, it almost seemed like as a parent he didn't care. I mean, because I always looked at it as a kid as like he was working in the military, so he didn't have a choice about where he went, and so at that point, like when you're an adult, you get military service, but it always seemed to me as a kid like he didn't care, and so I would like to see more of Donald to show that he actually does care for Huey, Dewey, and Louie. And yes, no Quack Pack inspirations, please don't.
Yeah, we do not need teenage. I mean, I don't have anything against the concept of older versions of Huey, Dewey, and Louie if they're actually done right. I mean, the episode where Scrooge is sent into the future and actually sees the grown-up versions of Huey, Dewey, and Louie, those versions were actually really good because they were still very much the same characters we knew, but you could tell that they had become adults over time and then had to work for magic of the spell. That worked. But then Quack Pack was just basically, hey, let's take Jonathan Taylor Thomas, multiply him times 3, and make that a show.
Exactly.
And so anybody who's seen the Nostalgia Critics Disney Afternoon video knows how well that turned out.
Well, and here's the thing also, you brought up the future versions of Huey, Dewey, and Louie. If I remember correctly on that episode, they also tried to show that there are differences between the three of them. They all have unique interests, even though some of them come together. And that's one of the things that Quack Pack did not do. It pasted them all into a Jonathan Taylor Thomas format and just said, oh, yeah, they're all like that. But in DuckTales, you could clearly see there were differences between the three of them. So
even in their limited appearances in the Kingdom Hearts games, they still find a way to make them seem unique.
Exactly. I mean, they still had unique dialogue individual to Huey, Dewey, or Louie. So I really hope that they do that. I will actually kind of open this up. Now, Alex is a little young, so I don't know if he's into DuckTales as much, but returning characters, I'd like to see Gizmo Duck come back. I liked the premise of Gizmo Duck. In fact, one of the things that I also agreed with from Andre the Black Nerd, crossover Darkwing Duck, I don't care. Crossover Donald, I don't care. Just do it, because I think this would be a really great idea to do, especially since a lot of younger demographics have never known Darkwing Duck.
Yeah, they might do it as a backdoor pilot, come to think of it. I mean, it would probably be a case of, if the new version of DuckTales does well enough, they may introduce Darkwing Duck in a kind of a backdoor pilot sort of way that would then spin off into its own series.
Exactly. Alex, are you excited for a return of DuckTales? Or, I mean, I don't know, is DuckTales past you? You still had the Disney Afternoon growing up, so...
DuckTales is a little past me. I remember fondly, I kind of grew up with the DuckTales movie. I watched the TV series here and there. Back then I was very solidly Nickelodeon more than I was Disney. I watched a lot more Nicktoons than I watched Disney Afternoon. But, I caught DuckTales here and there, and, it's hard for me to totally get excited for this right now, because this is 2 years out, and 2 years in animation, so much can change in a heartbeat. So, this is just something, wait and see. If there's anything that kind of bothers me is that this is relegated off to Disney XD. I know that's kind of Disney's main animation network now, but I feel it's like, I kind of wonder why Disney Channel itself, Disney Channel proper, lacks so much animation. It's the same thing with Nickelodeon. Now Nickelodeon's kind of relegated most of their Nicktoons off to Nicktoons Network, save a handful.
Unless it's SpongeBob, because SpongeBob plays on all of it.
Yeah, SpongeBob, Fairly Odd Parents, and there's like a couple new Nicktoons coming out, which is like, seriously, I swear this is like the first sign of any Nicktoons on Nickelodeon in like 6 years, maybe a little more, because it seemed like after 2004, after 2005, Nicktoons just disappeared. It all went to live action. And Disney's kind of done the same thing.
Yep. So, I mean, overall, I'm excited for this. One of the things I'd actually like to see them also do, kind of similar to what, because I still loved how Cartoon Network approached the Thundercats remake, where they kept the fans involved and they showed concept art of Lino and things like that. Even though Thundercats didn't pan out, ultimately, I did like the fact that they kept people involved. I'd like to see Disney keep people involved and show concept designs of what Scrooge is going to look like in this series. Or see how the Beagle Boys are going to be different. Because obviously this is not just going to be them, copy-pasting DuckTales. This is going to be them remastering or reimagining it. So overall, I'm excited, but let's go ahead and get into the next story because we actually have big stuff. We have Oscar news to talk about. So, and no, that does not involve Al Sharpton, so people can be happy about that. So another interesting story that came out over the week was YouTube has decided to introduce a subscription service, basically an ad-free concept to be able to pay a monthly fee, kind of like Netflix. And here's the thing too, it actually would make sense because they do distribute like anime and animation and things like that on YouTube. So a subscription format was going to come sooner or later, and I think there are even unique YouTube series, aren't there? I think they were the ones that started it before Orange is the New Black and House of Cards happened. So it's interesting that now YouTube is considering to do a subscription model where you can get ad-free stuff. And I guess obviously there are questions that can come from it, which is like, does this work on every YouTube video or just to the stuff the subscription service is for? You know, how does that work? But overall, I'm interested, but I'm wondering how this is going to pan out in YouTube.
Well, yeah, and what worries me about it, I mean, on the one hand, I can understand it. It's like, okay, people keep blocking our ads. You don't want to see the ads? Well, then pay us the money so that the people who make these videos can get some of that money. But first, would any of the YouTubers themselves be getting any of the money that's coming from the revenue of this subscription service? And then the other thing that worries about is, well, will this have any effect on the copyright claims algorithms that they have implemented in the system, given that they'd be going to a subscription-based format that could open up some legal liabilities for if you have users uploading copyrighted content and they're actually now paying a service, then a lot of these other studios could argue, well, your people are paying you to watch this stuff and we're not getting any of that money. That's kind of what worries me is, will it make any of the copyright stuff currently going on YouTube worse?
Exactly. That's actually one of the questions that I had, Romney, which was, how is this going to affect people who are monetized? Because part of me is kind of worried they would not see a chunk of this. That their ads would still be unaffected, or they would be. Like, the ad-free service would work on all of them. But Polaris and all the channels under that, they're never going to see any of that. It's just going to be YouTube money. And I think that would be a bad move. In fact, because here's the thing. A lot of people have admitted they would pay a subscription service to never see an ad again. Hulu Plus is an example of this. You know, if you pay the service, then you don't have ads. And they love it for that.
You still see the ads, though, when you use Hulu Plus on TVs and those other devices. You still see ads on those devices.
Yes. But on the PC, I believe they skip.
Yeah, even then, I'm not quite sure, because I think you actually do still see some ads. I think you're more or less just paying to access certain shows and be able to stream them on devices, because my sister uses Hulu Plus, and she's let my mom use it on the Blu-ray player, and so I think it's more you're paying... I'm
not sure, because I'm a PlayStation Plus member, so I'm technically paying for a Hulu Plus subscription, but it's going through PlayStation Plus, so I don't know how that works.
Well, yeah, I think a better comparison would be sites like Crunchyroll. Now, Crunchyroll, I know that if you pay the $14 a month, I think it's $14 a month, I could be wrong, but I know with their website in particular, you do have it be ad-free, and you get to do the HD streaming. And so, yeah, I kind of like the idea of the whole subscription service to pay to not have the ads, because that takes care of that issue. I'm just wondering how that would affect kind of the revenue calculations. Like, if somebody's paying that, and they're watching videos that are monetized, how would they be getting any of that money? How would they be how would it be factored? Because usually when somebody views an ad or clicks on an ad, that's what determines how much revenue you get, is if how many people are clicking the ads or watching these ads. But when they're taken away, what's going to happen monetization wise?
Well, and here's the thing too, I don't think we have a set price on it. So that's another thing that has to be added. You know, what is the equation here? Is it $7.99 like Netflix? Is it $14.99 or whatever? And how does that add into the monetization equation? Because my big worry, like I said, is it's not. It's only associated with this content, and at that point, but here's the loophole: is you might actually be able to see ad-free videos on channels that aren't getting monetized from it. And that's an issue, because I think they should see a piece of that pie, especially if it's going to be free ads. Alex, what is your take on this? Since you were actually the one that introduced this story, good idea, bad idea?
I guess it's another, we'll wait and see what happens.
Really is, yeah, because with YouTube, you never know.
Yeah.
And here's the thing, we'll keep up to speed on this when we actually do get amounts and things like that, but it's more cringeworthy for me at this moment, because it makes me wonder, okay, oh, and actually, we do have a price, it's $7.99 per month, but
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know if I like this, especially with how YouTube's been handling things recently.
Especially in the wake of the Viacom lawsuit as well.
Yup. So let's go ahead and get into the next story here. And this is actually going to be kind of a double story, because the Oscars happened, as well as the Razzies. And so we're going to be discussing the results of this. I will admit I have only seen one result, and that's the one I cared about, and that was Best Animation, and it went to Big Hero 6, and I was happy about that, because I wanted it, like, I wanted Tale of Princess Kaguya to get there too. I also wanted Wind Rises, but...
Well, Wind Rises wasn't nominated this year.
Yeah, well, I wanted them to get into the nominations, is what I mean.
Last year, Adam. They got in last year.
I know.
Well, yeah, because I know the one that a lot of people wanted to actually have a chance for Best Animated Feature was Song of the Sea. That one was getting a lot of awards traction. And personally, I mean, don't get me wrong, I liked Big Hero 6 as a film, but I find it kind of ridiculous that Disney's been taking the Best Animated Feature award for the past 7 or 8 years.
Yes, that is frustrating. So I get where a lot of people can have problems with that. I like Big Hero 6, so that's where I'm standing on the matter.
And Captain America won visual effects. You'll be happy about that.
Yes, I was happy about that too. Because Captain America deserved it, even though I think it was contending with Guardians of the Galaxy, so I'm a little sad about that.
Well, yeah, the big problem, and this is a problem that even people in the animation industry have been pointing out, is that the big problem is that a lot of these people who vote on these animated films, one, either aren't actually watching films, or two, are basically having their kids decide it, which is basically problematic, because they're not looking at these films as films, they're not giving it the time and attention they deserve to actually make these decisions, and that's the problem with the Oscars as a whole, is because with a lot of these nominees and a lot of these categories, you have people who haven't seen all the films, who haven't even seen the entirities of certain films, casting these votes for whatever reason. I mean, the biggest example, and yeah, as much as I like 12 Years a Slave, that was actually a problem where a lot of people who voted for 12 Years a Slave hadn't actually seen it. They were simply voting for it because it was a film about slavery. And again, I thought it at least deserved it. It had some merit, but that's still very much a problem. So that's why I didn't even bother watching the Oscars this year, because the nepotism and just general apathy is just so rampant. It's basically one big industry-wide circle jerk.
It really is. But, I mean, we've discussed this plenty.
Yeah.
Alex, you were going to say something?
Yeah, I take it neither of you guys did watch the ceremony?
I have not watched it for like the last 5 years. I got sick and tired of the Seth MacFarlane jokes. I heard about how Neil Patrick Harris walked out in his tidy whities. It's not interesting to me anymore.
Yeah, I did watch this. I watched it again this year. I didn't know I was gonna, but yeah, I watched it. I gave it a shot. I gotta say about Neil Patrick Harris, he had a lot of energy, he had a lot of enthusiasm and charisma, but a lot of his jokes were pretty bad.
Yeah.
It's not that they were lowbrow; they were just not very funny. But I thought the whole tidy whitey where he's walking out in his underwear, which was actually an homage to Birdman, the movie Birdman, which won Best Picture, and so I thought that was pretty funny. He had some funny bits, but again, at least I'll give him credit for he was having fun. Unlike James Franco when he hosts and Anne Hathaway when they hosted, and they just kind of sleptwalked their way through it.
Yeah, or I mean, the best example here is, like, ever since Billy Crystal has left, I really haven't seen that they've found, like, a genuine host to run it. They had Ellen come in, they had Seth MacFarlane come in, they had James Franco, and it's just they haven't found the right guy yet.
I've liked Ellen. I mean, the last time I saw Billy Crystal, I saw Billy Crystal twice. I saw him when he hosted the Return of the King one, and I saw him when again when he hosted a little later. I can't remember which year that was now, but
Yeah, I think I know he was brought in as an emergency host after Eddie Murphy stepped away from it because Eddie Murphy and the good director of Tower Heist were going to do it. Then they fired the guy from Tower Heist, and then Eddie Murphy walked off from it because they fired the guy from Tower Heist, and so they brought in Billy Crystal as an emergency host.
Oh, right, that was Brett Ratner who was going to produce it that year, and because Brett Ratner shot his mouth off, but put his foot in his mouth, he got fired. So,
which is something Brett Ratner's known to do.
Funny enough, Eddie Murphy was in the audience this year.
Yeah. So let's actually go into a little bit of the winners. And I actually wanted to bring up a quote from Aldo because I think he kind of summed things up, at least as far as the controversy that happened with, or the whole Al Sharpton thing. So some of the winners, just to kind of go over the big ones. The winner of Best Picture was Birdman. I have not seen it, so I don't know if it's the greatest thing. Like a lot of these films I have not seen. Best Actor went to Eddie Redmayne for The Theory of Everything. We also had Best Actress go to Julianne Moore for Still Alice. Well, that's not surprising to me. And then Actor in Supporting Role, we had J.K. Simmons for Whiplash. That was nice. I like J.K. Simmons.
Dave Johnson.
Okay, exactly. He doesn't have to. We don't have to come back to the Oscars with the lemons. And then we also had Patricia Arquette for Best Actress in Supporting Role for Boyhood. We also covered the Best Animated, which was Big Hero 6. These are kind of the big titles that a lot of people are interested in. And I watched some of the, I don't want to call it backlash because it was just Al Sharpton running his mouth. But I think Aldo actually kind of got the comment right, where it was like, well, if you're mad about the black people's performances and the fact that they didn't even get nominated or anything like that, maybe you ought to just kind of double your efforts and get them into the proper performances. But it's one of those things where I just didn't agree with the whole race angle, period.
Yeah, the
I didn't
one
even
thing
agree with it last year, where Ellen came out and just said, well, if we don't vote for this one, we're all racist.
Yeah, the one thing I do need to correct Alex on, Captain America Winter Soldier didn't win visual effects. It says here that Interstellar won.
Oh, really?
I thought it was Captain America, actually. Maybe it was Interstellar.
I could have sworn I saw a Captain America one walk away.
Let me double check this one.
Well, yeah, I'm looking at the site right now, and it says Interstellar won.
I'm going to double check IMDb, let's see.
Oh, and I see why the geeks were also pissed off because Everything is Awesome didn't win.
Yeah.
Oh, Everything is not awesome.
Well, the song, I gotta say, the song from Selma was pretty decent.
So, I mean, overall...
Oh, you're right. I guess Captain America did not win.
Yeah, it's Interstellar. Okay. So, you lied to me, or I just didn't read it.
Yeah, so far, out of the wins, at least I know that at least with the Best Actor one, Eddie Redmayne did deserve that win because his performance in that film, especially since he had to convey emotion without moving most of his body towards the end of the film, that takes some genuine skill, and so he deserved that win.
Exactly, and I have not seen The Theory of Everything, but I'll give him props if that's what they did because that sounds to me kind of like A Beautiful Mind, where I really think that was well done.
Well, yeah, because the idea is that it's the story of Stephen Hawking, and, well, Stephen Hawking still suffers from ALS, and so it was a really good performance, and so I'm glad that he won because he really deserved it. Yeah.
So, overall, I mean, I wish I could say I was surprised with some of the results. I really am not. A lot of these films I have not seen.
I haven't seen many either. As I was actually tweeting throughout the whole ceremony, by the way, if anyone wants to go look through my extensive Twitter history on it. First, I started getting, I didn't have any predictions, like I said last year maybe, but for a while I was starting to think Grand Budapest was going to start sweeping because it was really having a strong lead early on. Then Birdman started coming in from behind and taking everything. And also surprised, this is like the first year in a while that we haven't had a picture-director split.
Yeah, I'm actually looking for director because I forgot to mention that one. Best directing went to Birdman. It was for Alejandro. I'm not even going to try and say that name. I'm going to butcher it. So, again, congratulations to the winners. I just was not all that interested. But I actually was kind of interested in the Razzies this year, because I like to lead up into stuff. Worst picture of 2014, I don't know if I agree. I think people have been giving a lot of crap to Kirk Cameron, and whether or not it's justified, that's up to the eye of the beholder. I've seen Kirk Cameron Saving Christmas. I didn't think it was horrible, but, well, yeah. I didn't think it was the worst thing ever, which Metacritic told me I had to think that way. You know, I think a lot of people just kind of got on Kirk Cameron because, holy crap, you know, why are you saying all these horrible or all these wonderful things about Christianity? I'm not even going to get into it. I just didn't have a problem with Kirk Cameron doing what he wanted to do. So, and then also, obviously, worst actor went to Kirk Cameron. Again, don't know if I agree with this concept, but I do agree with the worst actress, because if I remember correctly, no, it's not. Cameron Diaz won it. I know she's in here somewhere, and I want to find it. Yes, here we go. The worst supporting actress for 2014, Megan Fox, for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
See, there's one I can't really agree with, because Kirk Cameron absolutely deserves his Razzie, because Kirk Cameron's a douchebag and he's a tool. Megan Fox was not that terrible in Ninja Turtles. Ninja Turtles was not that terrible of a movie, people. Get over it.
She couldn't be bad or good. She was an ass shot.
It wasn't nearly that gratuitous as you make it sound.
But that was the purpose of... Okay,
there were more ass shots. I'll give you, there were way more ass shots in Transformers, but there were not nearly that many in Ninja Turtles.
Yeah, Ninja Turtles, they actually kept it fairly tame.
No, they were fairly tame with the matter, but I'm sorry. If somebody were to make an argument to me that she was the best actress ever in 2014, no, she wasn't.
Not bad, but not. I wouldn't say worse.
I can think of worse. And then also, worst director did go to Michael Bay for Transformers 4: Age of the Marky Mark. And, yeah. Thank you. I wanted that.
Fair enough, I guess.
Yeah, though I do definitely have to agree to the whole worst remake, ripoff, or sequel. The remake of Annie, I do kind of have to agree. I really wanted to like it, but the director, he was basically trying to cram in too many fourth wall and meta humor jokes that he forgot he was making a musical, almost like he was ashamed that he was making a musical. In which case, if you don't want to make a musical, then why the heck are you making Annie?
Yeah, for the most part. I didn't see Annie, but, I mean, Alex and me kind of had the same opinion for the longest time. It's like, no.
Yeah. Some of the music was good. I mean, it had some good moments. They just needed a better director, and they just needed to cut out a lot of the fourth wall stuff, because that's what really hurt it. Again, some of the soundtrack, for the most part, there were some songs that were kind of but there were some really good musical moments. I mean, Cameron Diaz's version of Little Girls, that was actually one of the best numbers of the entire film, because it actually did a good job of really establishing who Miss Hannigan really was, and Cameron Diaz was a surprisingly good choice for it. I mean, I was wary at first, but, geez, Will Gluck, I don't know why the hell they hired him to direct that.
One of the things I actually did hear about Cameron Diaz is, she, where you're saying that she did fairly well, I remember seeing a lot of people saying she needed to do an apology letter to Carol Burnett because she just was not living up to that role.
Well, yeah, but the thing is, the reason why I was pleasantly surprised is because Cameron Diaz kind of has this problem where she's trying to convince the world that she's still sexy. But that actually works really well for the character of Miss Hannigan, at least with this interpretation, as someone who's desperately trying to convince the world she's still sexy when she actually isn't, and that worked out really well for that character, because that was how that character behaved. I mean, especially if you look at the Carol Burnett performance, and that's why I liked her turn on it, because they found a way to make that aspect work. But then they tried throwing in all the meta jokes, jabs at Phil Lord and Chris Miller for who knows why, and yeah, because I mean, Jamie Foxx did a really good job. All the actors, everything else was there. They just needed to have a different director. This is a case where the director was the one who basically clubbed the film in the knee.
Which would not be surprising to me in the slightest.
Okay, there's one more thing we should talk about here with the Razzies, and that is the Razzies have introduced, I don't know if they've introduced this now, but now they have this category Redemption Award, where they go back and look at their previous Razzie winners, and then they give them an award for redeeming themselves. So this year it was Ben Affleck, Razzie winner of Jiggly, whatever. Then, yeah, Oscar Darling for Argo and Gone Girl. I agree with that. The other nominations were Jennifer Aniston, four-time Razzie nominee to SAG winner for Cake. Mike Myers from Razzie winner for The Love Guru. Keanu Reeves, six-time Razzie nominee to critically acclaimed John Wick. Kristen Stewart from Twilight, of course, to Camp X-Ray. I think, Kristen, you got a little more ways to go before you can redeem yourself for Twilight.
Well, yeah, but to gotta be fair, a lot of people are kind of hard on her, but really, the reason she's kind of going to these art houses is the problem is that she's been paired with some really bad directors. That's been kind of the main issue. And all the more reason why I'm very worried about Rupert Sanders directing Ghost in the Shell, because Rupert Sanders obviously did not do a very good directing job with Snow White the Huntsman when it comes to telling the actors how to do their thing.
See, where I would actually make the claim that one of the biggest problems is that Kirsten Stewart has had bad direction, at least the way it looked like. And also I would say that her acting ability needs a little bit of work, but the way that it needs work is that she needs an actual director saying, this is what I want on film. And so it's one of those things where I'm willing to give her at least a little bit of leverage here, because, I mean, holy crap. Snow White and the Huntsman, holy crap, that was just horrible as far as I was concerned, especially
misguided is probably the best word.
Well, I just thought the whole movie was horrible. But that was me, and thankfully my wife's not here to come beat me to a pulp, because, heaven forbid I have an opinion on this. But yeah, so I'm willing to give her at least the benefit of the doubt. She needs to find her director. She needs to find her niche, and then she'll be okay.
Yeah, she needs to find the kind of director that's actually willing to kind of push her to her limits, because she seems like the kind of actress that you're not going to get a good performance out of the way. She seems like the kind of actress that you have to pull that sort of thing out of her in order to get something good. And there are actors like that where they can do something really well, but only after a director has really gone through and put them in the right mindset. I mean, to be honest, off the top of my head, director that I'd probably want to see give a chance would probably be somebody like Francis Ford Coppola, because Coppola is known for pulling that sort of thing out of the actors, working with actors to try to get them kind of into character prior to even shooting. I mean, if you look at all the work he did for The Godfather or Bram Stoker's Dracula, and he spent months with the cast of Dracula to make sure that we're paired, and really was working with them to pull that character. So Stewart needs to be paired with a director like that who's willing to kind of push her to her limits and pull those performances out, because she has potential. It's just these directors are basically just saying, oh, yeah, she's got the face, she's able to stare blankly, and they're not actually giving her a chance.
That's the problem, is that she's getting kind of treated, Alex is going to come at me for making this comparison again, but she's being kind of given a Megan Fox approach, where it's just like, we want you to just sit there and look pretty. And in a lot of cases, and here's the thing where I'm going to shock Alex a little bit. So I actually think that there is a performance in Kristen Stewart. I think she's got something coming for her as long as she plays her cards right. I also think this of a certain Transformers cast member, not Megan Fox, but Shia LaBeouf. I actually think he's got a performance in it. At some point. He needs the right person, though.
Shia has had some really good performances outside the big films.
I still don't think he's had that moment yet.
I actually remember a really decent Disney Channel movie where he actually played a kid with autism, and then there was the Emilio Estevez film, Bob. Yeah, it was Bobby, I think, where it was a minor role in that one, but.
Well, then there was also that music video that actually caused a lot of controversy because of the whole pedophilia accusations, and looked like he did a pretty good job of that, because the whole metaphor of that music video is kind of the whole notion of how fathers still see their as daughters as children, kind of that inability to let go and that sort of thing. And so Shia's actually been playing his cards fairly right. I mean, getting paired up with directors like Lars von Trier for Nymphomaniac, kind of iffy, but he's at least been making an effort to kind of get out of the whole genre shadow that agents kept trying to put him in. He had agents trying to kind of make him into the next Tom Cruise, and he wanted to get away from that really desperately.
Yeah, and that wouldn't work for him. She has got his role somewhere. I just haven't seen that from him yet. And when it happens, I will applaud him for it, and I will not call him Shia LaBeouf no more.
He was pretty good in Fury.
Until then, if all I'm going to get on camera is the no, then I'm going to mock him for it.
Well, yeah. He was all right in Fury.
I don't
Fury was
at that moment.
Yeah. Well, yeah. But again,
Bolus and Disturbia were pretty good movies.
I think those were tapping into it, Alex, but I don't think it was it. I don't think the director was pushing him yet. Not to the limit that I think I actually think Shia has the potential to be like Oscar worthy. I just don't think he's come across the director that's willing to push him to that.
Yeah, director or the project, because he's even been trying to transition into directing, but then with his short film, there was a whole allegation of plagiarism of taking the story from HowardCantor.com, or I think that's the name of the comic that he was copying. I'm not sure. So yeah. Again, an actor is only really as good. An actor in a film is only really as good as the director who's giving them direction.
Exactly. So we actually are almost running out of time. We've stayed on the Oscars and the Razzies, and we do actually have 2 other stories to talk about. So I'm going to kind of rush through one of these stories, and then we're going to get into the other. But we are running out of time, so we're going to get through this as best as we can. Another story that we actually discovered over the week was apparently one of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles writers for the 2014 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles has actually been signed on for the Tomb Raider movie reboot. I guess we're rebooting that too, along with the games. And I guess my only opinion on this matter is why? Why are we rebooting Tomb Raider? And also, is Angelina Jolie involved?
I doubt it, because
if she is, I'm not coming.
Well, yeah, I doubt she's involved. 1, because she's been trying to establish herself as a director. 2, there was the whole surgery. I think it was a mastectomy, not because she actually had cancer, but because she was at risk, and so she had certain organs removed, and so she's probably not up to really do any major acting. But I doubt she's involved in any way. But I can kind of see why they're wanting to reboot the films, because, well, they're rebooting the games. They're trying to gear up the franchise, so we may as well try to follow suit and create a film. Well, yeah, it's kind of like try to create a film series that's centered around this new take on Lara Croft, which I'm curious. Because I never really latched on to Tomb Raider because I didn't like the whole Angelina Jolie hyper-sexualized version. I mean, yeah, I've heard the games were really good, but it just never interested me. So
I can honestly say I didn't play the old games. I started at the reboot. I love the reboot. I think it's great. And frankly, if they're going to do something along those lines, more power to them. I will just say this one quick thing. No Jennifer Lawrence.
Agreed.
Jennifer. I like Jennifer. No. Because it's just Hunger Games all over again.
Yeah, and again, Flame Shield's up for this. I don't like Hunger Games. I don't think Katniss is a good character. We do not need another Katniss. I mean...
Oh, you're not the only one.
Well, yeah, and plus, I think it would be better just for Warner Brothers in general to maybe just bring in a lesser-known actress, bring in almost a relative unknown as Lara Croft. Because again, it's the whole Robert Redford as Superman argument, where if you bring in somebody like Jennifer Lawrence or Shailene Woodley, they won't see the character. They'll just say, "Oh, that's Jennifer Lawrence playing Lara Croft." They won't see Lara Croft, and so it's the same basic concept. And so it would be in their better interest to just bring in a relative unknown or somebody who isn't as well known to the average movie-going public, so that way you can actually have the character look as the character and not have any of that baggage attached to the actress.
Yes. So the bottom line is that I think that I'm not going to fault this guy. I mean, Evan. I think his name is Evan Doherty. He's the guy who's being jumped over. Now, a lot of people have actually been frustrated with this pick, especially for the Tomb Raider reboot, because this guy has penned stuff like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. He's penned Snow White and the Huntsman. He's penned Divergent. He's also scripting out G.I. Joe 3. And so at that point, I'm not willing to fault him. You know, it's 3 strikes, you're out kind of thing, and I've only seen Turtles. So I'm willing to give... Well, and I've seen Snow White and the Huntsman. So 2 strikes.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, but I've heard good things about Divergent. I mean, I know some of the reporters I've talked to, they've liked Divergent, and so given how popular that film's been getting, probably a good strategic choice on part of both MGM, which is the main producer of the film, and Warner Brothers, which is co-financing the film.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm not against this concept. Let them do it. I just don't want the hypersexualized Lara Croft. I want this Lara Croft, the one that I know, because I think that would actually be a good story on paper. So with that said, Alex, do you have any thoughts on this before we move on, or?
No, not really any thoughts.
Because you haven't seen Tomb Raider, you need to fix this.
Yeah, I haven't seen the original Tomb Raider movies, and yeah, I'll need you to get me into the new rebooted games.
Yes, we need to do that. So let's go ahead and get into our last story here, and unfortunately we're going to be ending on a bit of a sad note, because literally, I think it was yesterday, the news broke, which Leonard Nimoy, also known as Mr. Spock, has unfortunately passed on at the age of 83. Now, I believe... Do we actually have a cause? Because I've seen multiple...
Yeah, there was a cause. Let me...
Of course there was a cause to death!
Oh, yeah. But, yeah, there was a listed cause.
Let's see. Announced last year that he... yeah, I'm not seeing...
Yeah, it says, his wife, Susan Bay Nimoy, confirmed his death, saying the cause was end-stage chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, which deals with the heart, I assume. I'm not that good with medical terminology. My younger brother is probably going to want to smack me if I didn't match it to the right organ. So
my wife will probably want to smack us both. I understand. But overall, this is a real shock.
Like lungs. I think pulmonary actually has to do with the lungs, not the heart.
Could be. Yeah, that sounds. Yeah, cardiac is heart. Pulmonary would be lungs. So
we're not doctors. Do not ask us to perform any surgery, people.
We're only doctors in trauma center, and we suck.
Yes.
I'm not a real doctor, but I play one on Direct and Shadow.
But I play one on TV. This would be something Leonard Nimoy would say. So, unfortunately, it's a sad story. It really is, because Leonard Nimoy passed on at 83, and he had such great things going for him. I still remember the whole advertising campaign he had with... I can't remember his name. Zach Quentin, is that his name? The new Spock.
Zachary Quinto.
Quinto, thank you. So at that point, I loved that advertising campaign, and he looked healthy for that. And so it was a real shock to see this happen. Also, I don't know if you guys saw the news, but I told Alex about this, but Romney, I don't know if you heard, I guess it was a day or two before he passed on, William Shatner was actually in an interview where he was actually being asked, to do stuff on the legacy. He was asked questions on the legacy of Leonard Nimoy. And he said a lot of really great things, and then Leonard passes. And so at that point, it's like, wow, holy crap. That's a little weird. But I'm thankful that he said nice things about it.
Well, yeah, especially when you look at the last tweet Leonard Nimoy sent out, where it's, I'm gonna paraphrase here, which is like, life is like a garden where memories, where you experience memories, they can't be preserved. That only I don't know. I don't remember the full.
I'm looking it up right now because it was a really pretty tweet, and so at this point, and I'm actually gonna be checking it out. So bear with me, guys. I'm working on it.
We're doing it live.
We're doing it live, people. We're doing it live.
You just reminded me when you mentioned advertising, but you remember those? I think it was for Priceline, because William Shatner's kind of the spokesman, and there were some brief moments in Priceline where Leonard Nimoy actually comes in to take over William Shatner's role as the spokesman, and Shatner's begging, "Okay, Leonard, please don't take this away from me. We could both be Priceline spokesmen." He's like, sounds logical, but no. But I was here first.
Exactly. And here's the thing. I know that there have been points where Leonard hated Mr. Spock. He hated the role, and
there was the
being stuck to it. First of all, here's the quote. I actually found it. So, a life is like a garden. Perfect moments can be had, but not preserved, except in memory. And he obviously ended it with live long and prosper, which a lot of people have resonated with. And there's been tons of internet dedications to Leonard. But it's one of those things where, I've seen Leonard hates he had a point where he hated Mr. Spock. But in the latter part of his life, he appreciated people's fandom, and he'd joke around with them. I mean, I still remember the one thing where he was on camera for the 2009 reboot, and somebody actually asked him, like, could you do Mr. Spock or whatever? And in a joke way, he was like, why are you guys asking this, you jackass? You know, and it was hilarious because he understood the fandom, but he also had his misgivings with being typecast as Mr. Spock. And so, and one of the internet dedications that I also want to point out, because it was just the greatest thing I ever saw. Yes, I saw the jokes about him going to the Final Frontier. I saw the Twitter thing that came out. It was like, oh crap, we don't have a Genesis planet. We can't bring him back. I saw all that stuff, but the most heartwarming thing that I saw for this was actually from James Rolfe and Mike Matei, which was they tried to recreate the Wrath of Khan scene of them just kind of looking at each other fondly and saying, remember. And I really do appreciate that dedication. Jokes are all well and good, but I like the fact that people wanted to just be sentimental about the fact that Leonard is no longer with us. Now, to kind of wrap things up on this, I actually did want to ask people, you know, like, what was your favorite Leonard Nimoy role he's ever done? He's done lots of stuff, guys. He's done animation. He's done video games. He's done tons of movies aside from Star Trek. He's done cameos on The Simpsons, for crying out loud. What is the best role that you guys remember him as? I put the caveat of except Mr. Spock, but I don't think any of us have seen him as Mr. Spock.
It's true. It's time for me to hand in my geek card because I am not a Trekkie.
This is 2 strikes, Alex. Click, click.
I love the Simpsons bits, though. You know, after the news broke, a friend of mine actually sent me 3 clips of his greatest Simpsons moments from Marge versus the Monorail, and one where he's introducing an episode. The episode is completely false, but it's true.
Yeah, exactly.
And, you didn't do anything. Didn't I? Beans up.
That was so awesome.
Well, yeah, then there was also that X-Files episode where he kind of was like the host of it at first, but then he said like, oh, well, I have to get something for my car, and he just drives off.
Exactly.
I don't think he's coming back.
I don't think he's coming back, guys. So another thing is...
The solar eclipse. The cosmic
and I actually
ballet
just saw another good dedication from You Geek Media. So, to people who don't know, James Doohan, I think, has also kind of passed. I think he's passed on too. And so somebody actually put up an image saying, "Beat me up, Scotty. It'll be good to have you on board, sir." That's kind of cool. So, Romney, favorite Leonard Nimoy role?
That's a tough one since I haven't seen that many things he's been in. And it's really tough because aside from Spock, the only other role that's somewhat coming to mind would probably have to be Xehanort.
Yeah, I have not seen his portrayal of it, but I have heard it's just absolutely awesome. His voice is perfect.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't like it at first, but then again, I was first exposed to the character in Dream Drop Distance, which wasn't the best way to get introduced to the character of the original Xehanort. But that's one performance of his I like. But really, I gotta mention it, if nobody else will, but I actually like the Ballad of Bilbo Baggins.
I like it too. I like it too. I still put it up on like when we're in the middle of a WoW raid or whatever, just to throw people off, because I love it for its silliness.
Yeah.
You know, it's one of those things where I almost kind of wanted a music career for Leonard Nimoy after hearing that, just for the heck of it.
Yeah.
So for me, I actually have to I have seen the Star Trek films. I think Romney has seen them at least, or at least a few.
I haven't actually.
Okay. I've seen the Star Trek films, and I actually did want to step outside of Mr. Spock because I don't have the original series as a reference. I was more of a Next Generation kid, and so at that point, I know Picard better than I know Kirk. I would lose the Kirk versus Picard argument. And that is, so I'm trying to leave the movies out. And actually, my most favorite Leonard Nimoy role would not be what you think, because it was actually my first integration to Leonard Nimoy, which was not Star Trek. My first was the 80s Transformers film, where he played the first ever incarnation of Galvatron. He took the role away from Frank Welker, and I still to this day I love the first line he says in that movie, which is I will let me see if I can pull my inner Leonard Nimoy out here. I will rip open Ultra Magnus and every other Autobot until the Matrix has been destroyed. Because that is just absolutely awesome. I also, like many Transformers fans, I love the Starscream death moment where you get to see Galvatron step on the crown and then Leonard Nimoy's sultry voice comes out. Would anyone else attempt to fill his shoes? You know, that's my favorite role for Leonard Nimoy, is him playing Galvatron. I still think he got a little jilted from Dark of the Moon being the villain again, but I guess what I'm trying to say to people is, like, we try to do these legacy things for these actors, and everybody's opinion is different. And I get the people who love Mr. Spock, but I know him as Galvatron. I know him as Master Xehanort. And Mr. Spock is kind of a later incarnation for me. So, first of all, thank you, Leonard Nimoy, for the many years that you gave to geek culture. And yes, I know sometimes we didn't show our love to you that well, but we thank you so much for the memories. We thank you so much for dealing with our impulses and for playing nice with them. And also thank you to William Shatner if he said the wonderful comments. I know that they are good friends, so it's going to be sad to have a world without Leonard Nimoy.
Yeah, but he did live long and prospered.
He did indeed. He did live long and prosper. So I guess this is the way to end the Geek News episode is for us all to give the Vulcan salute.
I can do it. I'm probably gonna fuck it up here, but let me just,
it takes some practice. I can do it with both hands.
Yep.
Let me just do one more Simpsons quote. The solar eclipse, the cosmic ballet goes on.
Exactly. So, unfortunately, we are actually a little over, but thankfully we're not as over as I thought we were going to be. So, we're going to go ahead and wrap things up tonight. For people who actually want to keep in contact with us and actually want to ask us questions on our opinions on the stories, or just talk to us about what we specialize in. For example, Alex is an anime reviewer. Romney does film. He's also doing series and games and things like that. I would like to think of myself as more of a game reviewer, but I also do get into film and TV. But if people want to get a hold of us, Alex, how do they do that with you?
My name is Shadow Blizzard 3000 here on YouTube. This is my channel. Like, this is not my channel right now. Actually, this is Drake's channel. But my channel is Shadow Blizzard 3000. I have plenty of anime content on there, some music and other stuff. So check me out if you're interested. If you want to talk to me on social networking, you can find me at Twitter. My handle is Alex J. Short. My name on Facebook is Alex Short. You can find me in those places.
All right. And then the time has come once again for Romney to try and beat his high score.
Let's see if I can get the stopwatch to work this time.
I hope.
Is it stuck? Yep, it's still stuck.
It's still stuck. No.
Yep. All right. You can always find me on youtube.com/StudioPhantasma. That's Phantasma with an F. You can also find me on Facebook at facebook.com/Romney'sReviews. No apostrophe. You can also find me on MoviePilot at moviepilot.com/ROMNE. And if you want to ask me questions directly, I'll answer them to the best of my ability. Unless they're completely stupid, you can do so at spring.me/AskRomney.
I think that was right on par. I was actually trying to time it. I think that was about 13 seconds. So
yeah.
I don't know if you're ever going to beat it, man. I just don't know if you are.
I don't know.
We're going to watch. We're going to be awesome about it.
Yeah, just watch when I speak so fast that everything I say just evolves into a single singularity and it wipes out the entire universe.
Exactly. Exactly. It's the history eraser button. You just didn't know.
No. That'll actually happen if the Micro Machine Man ever gets on the podcast.
Oh,
then I'd be in trouble.
I would love it. I want him on. I don't even know if he's around anymore. I want him on. Just because I want him to do something along those lines. I want him to do it for all of us. So, also, there is a panelist missing here for people who are new to the show. First of all, welcome. The fourth panelist that we have here is Aldo Gomez. Unfortunately, he had problems with the internet gods that he was not able to make it tonight. But if you want to get in contact with him on these stories, and we will ask him his opinions on some of these, because He was very passionate about them. You can reach him at boardoffline.net, where he does a lot of his game reviews. He also does reviews of cons and cosplay and things like that. He loves all things convention, so he likes to do the reviews for those. You can also follow him on Twitter, which is Aldo531. And then also you can go to youtube.com. I think it's under Board Offline too, his YouTube moniker, where he does his own films as well as just little spots here and there reviewing games or whatnot. I still love one of the movies that he has up there is like the day in the life of a comic store salesman. Just because it's an interesting take on it. Also, if people want to get a hold of me directly, you can see my YouTube channel right here, if I can point at it right. This is so disorienting at times. Drac2326 is where you can reach me on YouTube. My channel is where Geek News, Reviews, and Opinions is hosted right now. If it gets popular enough, who knows, it might get its own channel, which I would love, because I like doing this podcast, especially with these wonderful panelists. If you guys want to follow me on Twitter also, you can go to Drac2326. Again, it's the same... what's the word I'm looking for? The same handle. And you can ask me questions on what I thought about the stories, or you can get on my case for having an eternal flame shield. You can do it. If you guys want to get a hold of the show directly, you can do that in 3 ways. You can email us at geekyweek@gmail.com. Once again, that's geekyweek@gmail.com, and you can leave comments on the stories. You can also leave stories that you want us to cover, and we will put those up. I have seen a few of these stories actually come up, and Romney or Aldo or Alex has suggested it, so I am seeing these things. Keep them coming. I like seeing fan input. Also, if there are things you would like to see us cover to improve the show, we are always willing to hear feedback. The second way you can do so is at our Twitter, which is GeekyNRO. And again, that's GeekyNRO. You can also find out on Twitter when we're going to be going live. And it's not just going to be set on Saturdays. We may actually even have some other things going on that we're very happy about. And we will be putting those up on Twitter when they're going live. You can also go to Facebook and look up Geek News, Reviews, and Opinions and like it. And you will get all information on where we're going to be going live, what we're going to be talking about. If we're going to be covering the story you want us to cover, it's all going to be there. But in the meantime, it is way past our bedtime, so we're going to go ahead and have to call this short for this week. But when we return next week, we will have even more Geek News, Reviews, and Opinions. And until then, live long and prosper.